Headlines.
It's time for headlines.
I have some very urgent and important breaking news.
Headlines.
On the Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Oh, get that Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast nonsense out of my face. This is Remember the Show with UFC welterweight champion Balal Muhammad. What are we doing here? Let's go. Jon Anik, Kenny Florian, and you know the guest of honor, Balal Muhammad, but it's his show. He's not really a guest on his own show. A lot to talk about. Dana White dropped a lot of bombs, but everyone itching to talk about this stuff. But Balal Muhammad, right? We got a date, brother. Love you, man. Let's go. How do you feel, man? We got a date.
My brother. I mean, like Kenny knows, once you got a name and once you got a date, everything changes. Like something clicks in you where you're like, I want to run extra miles. I want to go. When Dana announced it yesterday, like I already knew it, but the fact that he said it, it made me want to go like run and work out. And it was like Maddie from the social media team was like, hey, Dana's going to announce it right now. And I was like, yo, it's 9:30. I'm getting tired. I'm about to fall asleep. And she's like, just stay up so you can post something about it. And I was like, all right, is he going to do it exactly at 9:30? She said, I don't know. It's Dana. All right. So
Right.
Cool, I'll wait for him.
Dude, well, it's great to see you. And Balal is a pretty regimented guy. I've known him for a long time, right? Typically wakes up at 8 Central Time, but he was ready to go earlier today. I'm sure a little extra juice, as we all had. So I understand, we all understand it was going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. I guess apparently was injured when he fought Ian Gary, but that's yesterday's news. So at some point, I'm sure it crossed your wake that Shavkat was injured. Is that correct?
Yeah. They told me we had the date for May 10th, and then they told me Shavkat was hurt. So then it was like, all right, well, who's it going to be? And for myself, I'm looking at the names on the list, right? And you're looking at it like, I mean, who's number two? I think Kamaru's number two, but you know, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. His knees are probably like 80 years old. I doubt they're going to give it to him. And then I'm looking at Brady. I already beat Brady. I already beat Leon. So then I looked at Jack. He had the highest win streak. And I was like, bro, I want to beat another guy's streak, right? We got Brady when he was 15-0. We beat Leon, who was on a 12 or 13 fight winning streak. Let's go. Jack got the longest streak now. It makes the most sense for me, and that's what I'm here for.
So was this something that like was happening behind the scenes where you were going back and forth with your representation in the UFC? Like how much input did you have into this?
Yeah, I mean, for us, they were just like, for me, I'm a guy, I don't care who it is, right? I don't care who's in front of me. But they were just throwing out the names, and then they were like, Shavkat was hurt. So then you're wondering who's it going to be, what it is. And then they discuss it with you, but at the end of the day, it's going to be whatever they choose. And then we ended up they came up with Jack. So I was like, all right, let's go. I'm cool with it. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, John, you know, three-name Jack well, right? See, for me, Flo, it really isn't about the opponent because I'm Team Muhammad. I'm fired up here. I'm going to take it off the rails already. John, you want to talk about three-name Jack? Because it doesn't really matter who's walking across the octagon. And I'll just cut you off there, John, again, and I'll just say, when Shavkat was going to be the opponent, Kenny Florian said, Balal can figure out a way to beat that guy, right? So, John, go ahead. Balal can figure out a way to beat whoever's in front of him. Go ahead.
Well,
John.
I actually wanted to hear what Kenny had to say as you completely sabotage our podcast. But Balal does look, and I know you're strong as an ox. You're built like a backyard shed, but you look lean and mean, bro. You look like you have been exercising nonstop since the fight was announced. So it's great to see your face. I do have a lot of questions. I mean, I'm the broadcast journalist in here. So I was bandying about some names before it was announced that you would defend your title against Jack Della Maddalena again in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Like, could we at least, Jay, get it out there? UFC 315 on May fucking 10th, is it? Anyway, I thought New Mansa Joaquin Buckley might have been a consideration, but that was because Jack Della Maddalena was booked. So there's a lot of news here that MMA fans are sort of marinating in. Like Sean Brady is now replacing three-name Jack against Leon Edwards, right? So I hadn't considered Jack, not because they were trying to make him and Shavkat a long time ago, or maybe because he needed a Leon win to really cement his status. I just wasn't considering guys who were booked. So were you surprised at all? I mean, I even considered Ian Machado Gary off a loss to Shavkat because he fought well and he wasn't booked. So were you considering that Jack could get pulled? I guess you probably considered that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, at first it was like, is it going to be someone coming off of a loss, right? Because the big names where you're looking at it, since Shavkat's out, it's Ian Gary would be next, but he's just coming off a loss. Kamaru loss, Kobe loss. And then I was like, all right, well, who's the longest streak? And I was like, Jack's. And I'm looking at his date where it would have been the end of March. was like, I doubt he would have been able to turn around. And then you don't want to take a chance of him losing that fight. Then it's like Leon's back there, and I just dominated Leon. So I think for the UFC, it made the most sense just because he had the longest streak, right? And people, he's from Australia. They're trying to build up that region over there. And New Manta, I think he was also a guy that they were talked about. But at the end of the day, it just came down to who had the longer streak, who had the most at 170. And I think for Jack, people expected it to be him, right? They expected him. And he was calling out these guys. Like, if there's one thing about Jack, I respect him because he was like you said, he was calling out Shavkat. He was calling out Gilbert. He was always wanting the next big fight. And he took Leon Edwards. So he's willing to step up and fight these guys.
Yeah, I know it's still early and you're going to break them down, with your team and all that stuff. But what do you think is the most dangerous thing about JDM and what do you need to worry about?
I mean, if I'm being honest with you, like I'm better everywhere. People were going to say, and they're going to ready to come out like, oh, he got hands. But I think they just underestimate my hands and my striking. And I just went against the best striker in the UFC and Leon Edwards, so-called. I train with the best striker in the UFC and Ignacio Balmendez. I train with Yair Rodriguez. Both these guys, if you've seen them spar, you guys seen them, they're a different level. So when I have a guy that's basic and Jack, who's just boxing, right? He has really good hands. He has good power, but he breaks a lot of these guys down because he hasn't fought anybody like me. His biggest weakness is his experience. He's never been in a big fight like that. Like for me, I sat there and had to fight Gilbert Burns for a number one contender spot. I had to fight undefeated Sean Brady. I had to fight Leon Edwards in Manchester. I've had the pressure of all of that on me. He hasn't had a pressure fight yet. He hasn't fought a pressure fighter yet. So for me, I think I'm going to go in there and I'm going to walk through him like I thought I was going to do to everybody else, and I've done everybody else.
It is crazy for me, the extent to which your striking is underappreciated, right? People go to UFC Fight Pass and watch the fight against Leon Edwards. It is wild to me that you don't get a modicum of credit, right, from some of the masses for your striking. And in some part, good, right? Like Jocko Willink would be like good, right? But hear me out, Belal, because you know how much love I have for you. Sometimes when you say that a fighter sucks, and I don't like that verb to begin with, but sometimes when you say a fighter sucks, I agree with you, But when you say Dricus du Plessis sucks, right? Part of me feels like you're saying it because you're striking so goddamn underrated that maybe you just say that. Like, you don't really think Dricus sucks, do you?
If I'm being honest, I think Dricus sucks. That's another one, right, bro? Hey, look at me. I just beat Leon Edwards, who's on this long streak, right? A 12-fight winning streak, 15-fight winning streak. He had to fight Sean Strickland, who sucks, who's coming off one win against Costa in a pathetic fight. And then, even before that, Adesanya, nothing but respect for Adesanya, but he's still coming off of a loss to get those fights. He hasn't had to fight those tough, hungry guys that are good everywhere. They're good in one spot. He hasn't fought the grappler and the striker. He hasn't had to go through all those guys. And when he did fight those grapplers, he looked pretty bad, but they gassed. Like, Brunson had his moments in those first couple rounds. Then he gassed, and then du Plessis comes through. He has heart. I'll give him that. But you're not going to beat me in the heart game.
Oh, I'm not suggesting he's beating you.
So
I'm not suggesting he beats you. I think you're both outstanding.
Hey, well, he uses the verb sucks because he ain't going to use the verb fucks, right? You know that. Well, I'm going to use that verb. But, a couple common opponents, right? So split decisions, couple of splits, but so common opponents, right? Gilbert Burns was last time out for Jack Della Maddalena, knocks him out. That was UFC 299, March of 2024. Before that, a split to Kevin Holland. That's a dub. Basil Hafiz, whatever, split there. And then you beat Randy Brown, bully, right?
Yeah.
And so he submitted Randy Brown, but not a huge resume for Jack Della Maddalena. But Belal, it's not cliche when you say next man up. I consider Belal a friend, and Ken Flo, when we have conversations, the opponent is so irrelevant to our conversations in terms of who do you want, right? Certainly he's going to break down his opponent, but it truly don't matter who's walking through that door. That's why, John, if he's breaking down Strickland du Plessis at 85, he likes his chances. Yeah. I don't know who I'm leaving that to, but
no, and that's 100%, right? Like you said, we have common opponents, right? But there's differences when you fought those opponents. You fought Gilbert Burns coming off of 2 losses now. For me and Gilbert Burns, that was a number one contender fight.
Yeah.
There's a difference when I'm beating these guys. So a lot of these guys will sit there and say that, oh, you beat this guy, but now look at him. You beat this guy, and then you now look at him. It's like when I beat these guys, they're on a streak. When I beat Luke, he was on a 5 or 6 fight winning streak, and he just weighed in as a backup for the title fight.
Yeah.
When I beat, Sean Brady, he's undefeated. If he beats me, maybe he's going to get the title shot. Like, I had to beat all these guys when they're at their highest level and they're hyped up. So I think that's the difference between me and the rest of these guys. They're catching them on their way out, and I'm catching them on their way up.
Belal, who do you think's a tougher fight? Do you think Rakhmonov or JDM?
I mean, if I'm looking at it stylistically, I beat both of them easily. And I think that I don't look at it as a tougher fight, right? I look at it as what I'm going to do to them, where they're good at. It's just adjusting the strategy. With Shavkat, he's a fancier striker. He wants to probably bang more. I think JDM is more crispier. But like I said, I think that Shavkat had that pressure fight in his last one with Ian Gary, and he felt it a little bit, right? It wasn't the same Shavkat you saw because there's different levels to it now. Now you're the co-main event. Now it's 5 rounds. Now you have to adjust it. I think now that's where JDM's gonna feel that in this pressure fight. It's your first main event, your first 5-round fight. But this is the wrong guy to have a pressure fight against. I'm not gonna let you, take my foot off your neck with that pressure.
Yeah. How do you like them deep waters? But Kenny, that's why I keep coming back to your line about talking about Belal and Shavkat, saying Belal can figure out a way to beat that guy. That's how I sort of feel about whoever the guy is who's going to be in front of him. But John, let me just say, right? Belal, your whole team, right? We already went to Manchester. We all got our passports, right? So we're ready to go to Montreal. Chef Larios, I understand Jelly Roll has a lot going on. Where's Chef Larios at right now?
He's on tour, but he's going to come down. He's going to come down April, I think, like 10th or 12th. So he'll be with me for like 4 weeks before the fight.
And we know we're holding it down with the nutrition there. Go ahead, Johnny.
Live edition of the Anik and Florian podcast. Moonlighting is Remember the Show, featuring the undisputed UFC welterweight champion Balal Muhammad. Back to health and defending his championship against Jack Della Maddalena. And it is amazing in this world of criticism in which we operate, right? Because had Balal Muhammad gotten the legacy fight, so to speak, against Kamaru Usman, my friend, right, and yours, there would have been some criticism from the MMA fans. And I would just say, as fight fans, Balal, I'm turning this to you. I feel like we should acknowledge our champion who truly doesn't care who's on the other side. If you won't take it from my biased twin brother, take it from me. You deserve credit, and the promoter deserves credit, because you could have easily drawn a hard line in the stance and said, hey, Kamaru Usman maybe isn't Georges St. Pierre, but that's the legacy fight. But they're really giving you the guy that's the healthiest and the best on the longest winning streak that the fan base wants to see you fight.
Yeah, 100%. But that's what when I said I won this belt, that's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be that guy where you looked at my resume and you're like, he's taking the easier fights. He's taking this guy. He's taking this guy. No, I want the guy that's on the streak. I want the guy that they think can beat me, right? I was looking for Shavkat. All right, he's not there, right? Who's the next best guy? Who's the next longest streak? And it's Jack. I'm not gonna sit there and Kamaru, me and him got a little beef. Let me get that one, right? It's an easy one, and obviously the biggest payday you could have. But for myself, I want to leave and cement my name as the best welterweight in this era, the best welterweight to ever do it. So the way that I had to do that is by beating these next hungry young guys. When Adesanya was that guy, he was a champion, Volkanovski, they were looking for the next best guy. They didn't care about the legacy fight. They were looking for the top guys when they were the champion. And I want to be that champion. I want to be the guy where, all right, I win, I beat Jack, then Shavkat. Then it's like, I could be calling for that 185 fight, right? Because I earned it. I beat all these guys by earning it. I'm not doing a Topuria winning, defending the belt once, and then going up and saying I want it. It's like, no, I earned it by just going to be like the 5th top 10 guy I'm beating right now.
There's so many things to discuss in this mixed martial arts world, but this welterweight championship situation is fascinating. And rest assured, like knowing you probably want to go to Perth, WA to fight Jack in his backyard. It's like as far as you can go pretty much from Chicago, Illinois, but it will be Montreal. Ken Flo, anything else on Montreal? I know you used to train obviously up there.
Yeah.
It is UFC 315. We also got Valentina Shevchenko and Manon Fiore. Anything else, Ken Flo, for Balal on that before we move on to Miami?
It's probably going to be the loudest you'll ever hear a crowd. I mean, the crowd is just amazing there, and it's been a while since they've been there. So I'm excited for Belal to experience that in a title fight. But I guess the other thing is, dude, the taxes are going to suck, man. Are they gonna take like 60% of your check after that night or what?
Bro, I'm already like trying to figure out a way. I'm talking to my accountant right now.
Really? Okay, yeah. That's the only thing I'm
Good
worried about.
information from the financial guy. We'll get you a little side hustle up in Montreal.
I remember GSP just hating fighting in Montreal all the time. It's like, man, I hate fighting in Montreal. They always take my money.
Yeah, no, I already heard. Then what was this recently that the guy who won the Mr. Beast challenge? It was like $10 million. And he lives in LA.
Right.
They gave him $5 million out of the $10 million. It's still a lot of money, but it's like, bro, what? All this going to the taxes? That's crazy.
Don't think we didn't see Ken Flo just smoothly, seamlessly slide into the perfect GSP impression. For those of you that haven't heard Kenny do his Brazilian Portuguese. But let's just quickly clean out 315 with respect before we go to 314. Belal, Michael Morales, Gilbert Burns in the division, right? Morales, a guy you're familiar with. Gilbert, certainly a guy you're familiar with. Belal, talk to me about that fight real quick.
I'm excited for it, man. Like this Morales is a killer. I don't think nobody's talking about him enough.
He's good.
He's so good, and he's so talented, and he's so young, but he's so big. When he came to Chicago and we were training, and I was like, bro, how much do you weigh? And, he's not that good. He's like, 190. And I told Coach, I was like, bro, he's not 190. He went on the scale, he was 218. I was like, bro. He's like, brother, water. I was like, dude, it ain't water.
218?
Bro, 218.
Damn, dude.
He's huge.
He's a young kid, too. He's like in his mid-20s or something?
Yeah, I think like 24, 25. So
bro, minus 395. Burns coming back plus 310.
And that's the thing, too, right? For Burns to take that fight, it shows you a lot about him. He's still willing to fight these next hungry young up-and-comers. And that means he probably still thinks he has some left in him, right? Because he could have sat there and probably waited for a Kobe or even a Usman rematch. But he's trying to fight the hungry young lion. So I'm excited to see it, right? I mean, I think this is one that puts Michael Morales on the map, and people will really start realizing that he's a contender. But, you hate to see a guy like Burns go out with that with, 4-fight losing streak. So it's going to be an interesting one.
I like this card better than 314, to be honest. I'm excited for. I'm excited for both of them, but I just think this is a better card.
Yeah, man. We got another big one coming up. They haven't announced it yet, but my boy Charlie Radke's on this card. I can't wait to see
right.
that.
Your friend Chuck Buffalo, but we can't unveil that just yet. Michael Morales is so good that he is Belal's part-time training partner. And he's the backup for the title fight, and the champ doesn't even know it yet. How about that, Michael Morales?
Wow.
Breaking news. No, but you look at the card, right? I mean, obviously, sometimes there is no backup, right? But it would behoove Gilbert Burns and his opponent, Michael Morales, to come in.
But no, this card is, I love it. And right, to get Shevchenko and Grasso both on the card, but fighting different opponents, I think has a lot of interest there.
Let me say one thing real quick about Manol Fiore, if I could, right?
Yeah.
I did say on the Anik and Florian podcast, as Ken Flo knows, he knows exactly where I'm going right now. I felt like Zhang Weili, Valentina Shevchenko strike while the iron is hot, right? But you need title fights, right? That's why a champion like Balal Muhammad is just a promoter's dream. You need title fights, and Manol Fiore, almost as undeniable, Belal, as you in terms of being a number one contender on paper, worthy of a championship opportunity. So I love that fight. I just think be careful, right? Because Manol Fiore can certainly get in the way of that super fight with immediacy come May 10th. So that's all I got.
Yeah, she's so good, and she has like an awkward style, right? And she's big. But like I was just with Valentina actually during New Year's. We had like an interview in Vegas, and she's just like locked in. She's another one that she's constantly training. She's always working. And she's always like in shape. So she just seems like another one of those champions that people think I'm getting older. People think that, I'm losing it, but I'm going to have to remind you guys. Same way she looked dominant against Alexa Grasso. That's the best she's ever looked.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
This one.
She's still hungry, man.
Well, we're excited. Hopefully we get Ken Flo with us up there in Montreal, but Jay and I will be there. And congratulations, champ. And it has me thinking about you after you retire, right? Like what you're going to do to scratch this competitive itch, because it seems like for you and for Volk, it's like if you guys don't have a date and a fight on the books, your equilibrium is off.
Bro, I mean, those 6 weeks that I was out with the injury, it was the worst time of my life. I just had to sit on the couch with a pick line in my arm, and I'm just like, but it made me appreciate the sport that much more. It made me realize how much I still loved it, and how much it means to me. So like me just being in the gym and being able to train right now, and be hyped up for this camp. Like I didn't forget how long it took me to get here, right? I didn't forget that I was begging for a title shot. I was dying to try to get this title shot. And I was asking celebrities to make videos for me to get a title shot. So that's just keeping that chip on my shoulder. And that's letting me know that, all right, well, Jack didn't have to do that. These guys didn't have to do that because I'm a champion that's allowing you to fight me. So now you got a different guy. Like I told Jason before, this isn't me defending the title. This is me still fighting for the title. I don't have to beg for it, though. So I'm going to get this other title by smashing Jack. And this is going to be me winning another title.
And I know it's in the rearview mirror, but the pick line and not allowed to sweat for 60 days or whatever it is. And, what was it like doing push-ups, Belal, coming out of that, right? What was it like taking a fall? You feeling soft again like me. So and look, he's going to turn around well within a calendar year of winning his first belt. So you brought up Volk, John. Let's transition to 314. So Ilia Topuria cleaned out the division, I guess, according to him. And frankly, if you're going to take care of Holloway and Volk like that, hard to blame him. So he's moving up to 55. We could get to that all day, but let's start with the matchup with Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopez. I love me some Diego Lopez, I will say. For the vacant featherweight title, it will be vacated, I guess, when the first strike is thrown. Volkanovski minus 155, Diego Lopez plus 130. Flo, just your initial thoughts, I guess.
Gosh, well, I guess for me, the biggest news is that Topuria is, obviously vacating the belt, but I think it's still a fantastic fight. The fact that Diego Lopez is going to be fighting a guy in Volkanovski who had that belt for a very long time, I think makes for a really interesting matchup. Lopez is a double threat on the feet, on the ground. He's a finisher through and through. I think he's going to test Volkanovski's chin early and try to bring that pressure. But Volkanovski has so much experience, and he's a slick operator himself. So I'm curious to see how Volkanovski bounces back.
John, I know you probably want me to say more about Topuria. So is there anything you want to get in on that? I mean, just fascinating. For a guy to sort of move up like that, I guess what he's put on paper for me, he's very close to the top of that, number one pound for pound conversation for me if I'm making my list. So, John, do you want to talk more about that?
I don't want to talk about your pound for pound list ever. Tonight, tomorrow, never in my life. I care less. Belal, I don't know how you deal with this guy. I texted you twice before the show, and one of the two things I texted you was Ilia Topuria talk before we get to Diego Lopez and Alexander Volkanovski. So talk about it. What do you have to say about it? Well, it's interesting, right? Because Movsar Evloev is now going to watch Diego Lopez compete for the championship. And Belal, you were there at UFC 288 when Diego Lopez made his UFC debut, right? May 6, 2023, the night upon which you beat Gilbert Burns, right? Movsar Evloev beats Diego Lopez in what was Diego Lopez's UFC debut less than 2 years ago. Lopez has since won 5 in a row. Movsar has continued to win. He's 19-0. Nobody's talking about him, right? And he had a fight booked against Ilia Topuria. So for me, my initial thought was, this division is not, let's not pretend that the division is cleaned out. Okay. Let's not pretend that the division is cleaned out. But Ken Flo, I'll spin it to you. We kind of are aligned that, Volkanovski and Max Holloway are in the rearview mirror, and the big fights that he wants and that the fans want for him are at 55.
Yeah, listen, I think Topuria is an absolute beast. I think he's proven that his striking is a little bit different than everybody else's right now, especially in that close range. He puts together some nasty combinations, and he's a patient dude, and he's good everywhere. And I mean, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who initiated this talk about having one fight before the fight for the belt. And again, I don't know that he may get Islam straight away. I don't know that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Just he makes very calculated moves. Everything he does inside and out of the cage, it's like he's thinking about it, and he's thinking long and hard about it, and then he executes on it. And curious to see if it's going to be Poirier, if it's going to be Oliveira, or if he's going to go straight for the king and Islam Makhachev. But I'm curious, Belal, what you thought as a belt holder. Were you surprised to see Topuria give it up? And What do you think his chances would be against someone like Islam Makhachev, a guy that you've seen in the training room?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that it was given up, right? If anything, I would expect it of the interim belt and then him try to go for double champ status.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't think he cleaned out the division where he earned a double champ status yet, right? So if he's leaving the division and he's like, I'm done with it, I can't cut the weight no more. Okay, it makes sense. But I mean, for him, if I'm him, it's like it doesn't make sense for me to go up unless it's fighting the champion. Like, because Oliveira, you fight Oliveira, that's a tough fight. And you're not gonna get the belt by beating him. Then you have to go through Islam again.
Right.
So for him, I'm like, was the risk worth the reward? If I'm being honest, not even like hater. Topuria is a beast. His boxing is good, his hands are good. But just seeing him against bigger guys and guys that really grapple, he hasn't really fought those real grapplers, right? He fought Bryce Mitchell, but Bryce Mitchell isn't as big as Islam. His striking isn't like Islam, and Bryce Mitchell took him down. We seen him go against Yusuf Zalal, and he gassed out in that third round. It was a different type of fight, but it was more, he was wrestling early in that fight, and then by that third round, he was tired. Islam's going to come shooting on you early. Islam's going to wrestle with you early, and he can strike, and he has power too, and he's huge. I think there's going to be differences there, and I think he hasn't felt that yet. And his only fight at 155, Jai Herbert dropped him with a head kick.
Right.
And, Islam dropped Volkanovski with a head kick, so he knows that a head kick. But if I'm him, I mean, I would rather fight, Islam. But if it's going to be a Poirier or Charles next, like those are both all tough matchups. It's going to be interesting to see him, man, because I don't really see him that big. I don't know how much weight he really.
No, he's not. But I also believe that a 36-year-old motivated, rested Alexander Volkanovski is not an easy fight, nor is a fight against that fucking blitzkrieg Diego Lopez. Kenny and I have talked a lot about risk reward for Ilia Topuria, right? Like there's inherent risk in him fighting Diego Lopez. There's far more upside, even if it's not a championship title defense, for Ilia Topuria to scalp Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier than it is to beat Diego Lopez in a title defense, with all due respect. And I think money comes into this as well, and I think, the calculated nature of Topuria is such that I'm going
to interrupt you there on the calculated nature, because I'm not necessarily, when I bring up, he's close, I'm not talking about my top 5. I'm just saying I put him on a very special level, Topuria. And Kenny, I think you've spoken of him extremely highly as well. So when I look at a guy like that is so calculated about his career inside and out of the octagon, what he accomplished in that division, I'm sure he has myriad reasons for moving up to 155. And the main one may come. John, we talked about this today when we were together. I told you I think he's fighting Islam, and you didn't agree with me.
Well, I think it stands to reason, and Kenny sort of intimated it there, that it could end up being Islam Makhachev, but it seems as though Topuria is not going to bat an eye if it is Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier. And Kenny, you think that might be part of the master plan to not bite off more than he can chew right away?
I think so. He has a tendency of kind of testing the waters in a variety of ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe obviously I'm speculating here and thinking too much about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in there and goes, okay, let's see what these 155ers are all about. Let's go against a legend, be it Oliveira or Dustin Poirier. If I lose to one of those guys, there's no shame in losing to a legend. I can always go back to 145, and of course they're going to give me a shot at the belt again. Right. And that way he kind of tests the water, see what these high level, OGs at 155 are all about. And then he gets the ability to build up that fight at 155 pounds against someone like Islam. Because I tell you what, if you're going to deal with someone like Islam, you want to know what a strong 155 pounder is all about before you get in there and he gets a hold of you, go, uh-oh. Right? I don't know.
And every career is unique. Might as well get those guys now than 3 years down the road when maybe you're more banged up.
Hasn't he said that he wanted to retire early too? So maybe he's just
trying to
put his foot on the gas early, quick.
Yeah.
Wasn't he one of those that said he wanted to be done by 34 or 35?
I think you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which makes sense. Again, that kind of goes along with the story there as well, Balal. So I think you're onto it.
Flo, I feel like I like 315, even though I'm biased. I like 315 more than 314 too. And 100%. I mean, what are we talking about next? Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett. That's the co-main event.
We haven't talked about Diego Lopez and Alexander Volkanovski yet. I love you.
Well, no, but I'm saying though that's the second fight on 314 that everyone's glowing about.
Again, Flo's criticism, right? Because it's not a consequential with respect, it doesn't feel like, well, you could be sure Paddy Pimblett ends up beating Michael Chandler, then all of a sudden it's going to be of great consequence.
He's favored, slight favorite.
I have so many different things like in my brain right now. Like even when I think about Leon Edwards and Sean Brady now fighting March 22nd, right? Which we haven't talked about. And now people saying, oh my gosh, Leon was going to fight Jack and now he's going to fight Sean. Oh my gosh. Do people understand that Leon Edwards did a championship training camp for Belal Muhammad, right? Leon Edwards can wrestle. He can grapple, right? Belal, am I crazy? Like I know Sean's the man, but he prepared for you. I think he feels like he can beat Sean. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I was just talking with somebody about it. I said, he just had a camp for me. I think when you're looking at Sean can't wrestle like me. He's not really good at getting advancing as much. His last fight, he looked really good against Gilbert Burns, but Gilbert Burns wasn't really throwing a lot. I think Sean's going to have a hard time getting in on Leon Edwards because Leon's so good at kicking and moving, kicking and moving, kicking and moving. And Sean really doesn't like to get hit a lot. He had a lot of good volume his last one, but it was just because Gilbert wasn't throwing a lot. I think if Leon Edwards is motivated and in a bigger cage, it's gonna be a tough night for Sean.
All right. Last thing, Jay, before I love that. Thank you, Bilal. I had to get that out there. Last thing, Jay, before I give you the reins back. So Diego Lopez, Alexander Volkanovski, perhaps Code Blue could chase a betting line on DraftKings Sportsbook, right? Diego Lopez is.
I got it. 155 for Volk and plus 130 for Lopez. I might have already dropped it, even though I'm so ill prepared. You want to know what I said to Bilal today about Leon Edwards and Sean Brady, two of his former opponents? I think he beat both of them. I was like, one of those dudes getting another L, bully. That's what I said to Bilal. One of them dudes getting another L. Those are two strong fighters. No, I mean, and the winner could be next. I mean, it's but one of them getting another L.
Bro,
Team Muhammad all day. What?
Without anger in your heart, can you just give me the betting line on the other fight?
Which fight?
Volk and Diego Lopez.
Yeah, 155 minus 155 for Volk, plus 130 for Diego Lopez.
All right, Kenny and Bilal, I just quickly wanted to get your thoughts on that fight. Once the first punch is thrown, the featherweight championship will be vacant. Diego Lopez, Alexander Volkanovski. I think that betting line is going to command two-way action, Ken Flo. We'll start with you on this. Diego Lopez getting the opportunity less than 2 years into his UFC career. It's been amazing. It's a really hard fight to handicap, I would think. Volk's ready to go, though. I can assure you of that.
Extremely hard fight to handicap. A lot of it is because what Volkanovski is going to show up. Is he going to go, well, okay, I need to protect my chin. Let me play it conservatively here and try to outpoint him and be the strategist that he is. But then you have Diego Lopez, he's going to be a fireball. He's going to go out there and he's going to try to find that chin of Volkanovski early and often until that final bell, because that's kind of the way he fights. I think that Volkanovski can handle Lopez on the ground. I do believe that. I think if we've seen him so many times get out of some crazy submissions with some great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, I'm not so concerned there. But I think on the feet is where I kind of want to see him. I want to see him outmaneuver Diego Lopez, and I think those first 10 minutes are going to be critical. And after that, he can kind of go into cruise control. So. But if he decides to actually go out there and fight and try to knock Lopez out and really counter him, that could be extremely dangerous. He is at the end of his career. He has experienced a couple knockouts now, and perhaps not what he was just a few years ago. But it's a fantastic fight. I'm excited about that one for sure.
Bully, it felt like when Topuria fought Volk, Topuria just was like, all right, I'm going to pick my spot. I'm going to let him sort of do his thing, and then I'm going to do my thing. Whereas it's not going to be the same thing against Diego Lopez, Bully, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel like, when you're looking at Topuria and Diego, they're similar, but they're really not. Like, they both have crazy power, but I think Topuria is more calculated, and he sets stuff up a lot better. Diego's just going to walk you down, and he's just going to throw bombs at you. And he doesn't care if you try to shoot on him because he has good jiu-jitsu. But I think Volk experience in the Topuria fight, he's going to know. Because he had moments in there, right? He was jabbing and moving, just sticking and moving, sticking and moving. And I was watching Diego because Yair was supposed to fight him. We thought Yair was going to fight him. So I'm watching tape on him, and I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, he has that chaos that he loves. But I think Volk's experience is going to be too much for him. I think he's going to be smarter in the earlier rounds, avoid the big shots earlier, make it, even kind of like what he did when he fought Aldo, pushing him against the fence, holding him there for a little bit, draining him a little bit. Then once it gets to the fourth and fifth round, those are the championship rounds. And I do think that Diego Lopez will get tired in those later rounds because he does go so full force in the early rounds.
You know, Cody put in the chat 314. Darren Elkins is on the card. I forgot. That's what, just seeing, you know, anyone who watches the Anik and Florian podcast, a lot of talk about the damage tattoo on the chest of Brian Petrie. So maybe that's why there's a little more juice on the 314 card. But Yair is on that card against Pitbull, making his UFC debut. Bully, talk to me.
Yeah, bro. I'm so excited for that one, right? Because we thought he was going to fight Lopez. That was a huge fight for him. And then they canceled it. And then they said Pitbull. And I was like, bro, that's huge. Because Pitbull, everybody knows him. And then when you look at the last guy who came from Bellator, you're like, all right, it was Michael Chandler. And how much hype he had coming. So I think that Yair, especially at 145 right now, with Ilya leaving, he goes out there, gets a crazy highlight reel knockout. He's one of the biggest names in the division. And he can still skip the line. Like, his name's that big enough.
Yeah.
Where him and Lopez do have that back and forth where they can talk and stuff like that. So if Lopez wins, that's a match to make.
The whole thing for me is just so fascinating with Volkanovski, how well it played out, right? A nice chunk of time off. You can cook with Volk. Looks incredible, everything the dude whips up. But this nice chunk of time off, right? I'm sure he's not been in the weeds, like drinking. I think, you know what I mean, in such an extended time. I think
a lot of time with him.
He's wanted the time off, right? So I think for him to be able to get another title shot with Ilia Topuria out of the picture, no matter how dangerous Diego Lopez is, has to be exciting for him.
Yeah, Diego Lopez will keep you up at night. I mean, I'm not a fighter, and I'll tell you, Diego Lopez would keep me up at night. I mean, I think I am kept up at night thinking about him fighting Charles Oliveira. So there's a lot of so Michael Chandler is going to fight Paddy Pimblett over 5 rounds. Jay, perhaps you could chase me a betting line on that.
I have it. It's in my head. I don't have to look at my paper. I think Paddy Pimblett was minus 120. Chandler coming back at even money.
So, Kenny, isn't that interesting? Michael Chandler as an underdog, right? And you can be sure that, I mean, oh, my God. You got to love Michael Chandler, right? Do you not bully, right? I mean, but it's like.
No. I mean, do you?
Patience is a virtue, right? But this man is going to be trying to knock Paddy's hairline off his forehead, right? Like.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just going to go balls to the wall.
He's never fought any other way. That's just what he does, right? I mean, it's pure chaos, Balal.
And it's a 5-rounder. So I'm looking at it. I don't think it's going to go 5 rounds. I know Paddy said he doesn't get knocked out, but like you said, Chandler's going to throw bombs. And even in that division, right? Islam's looking for new contenders. So if Chandler goes out there, gets a knockout, or even Paddy Pimblett goes out there, gets a win, I can see one of those guys skipping the line because he said, even if Gaethje wins against Hooker, I'd rather fight him, right? I don't want to keep fighting these rematches. So both these guys, there's title implications no matter what. Like, Chandler could lose 8 in a row. If he wins one by crazy knockout, they'll give him a title shot.
Is this one like I don't, for whatever reason, I think Paddy's a good fighter. I just haven't kind of been on the hype train really. Have you, and are you on that train? And do you think this is the fight where we have to start to really take Paddy Pimblett very seriously if he beats someone like Chandler?
I'm not on that train. Fudge the Paddy train. He freaking screwed Jared Gordon. But his last fight was impressive, right? Beating Bobby Green the way he beat Bobby Green. I mean, it was just a terrible game plan for Bobby Green, but he still went out there and he finished him. Beat a guy like Chandler, right? Who's been in there with everybody in the division, all the top guys, and he went to war with all of them guys. None of them was an easy fight for him or for them. So if he goes out there and he gets a finish on a guy like Chandler, I think that'll people still put Paddy on that, Dana White privilege pedestal, and they don't think he's good enough and they don't believe in him yet. I think this is the one. If he wins this one, you believe him. He's real.
And, Jon has been on that hype train since very early on. And frankly, when Jon gets on a hype train, he was on the Ian Gary hype train early on. I get on the hype train with him. I like Paddy a lot. I absolutely think Jared Gordon beat him, but putting that in a separate bucket. I don't know Paddy Pimblett, the martial artist, to the full extent, but I think Jon believes a lot in his ground skills and his overall game. You could be sure I think he's a smart fighter. I think he's not fat right now, and he's always been fat, sort of out of camp. So I think maybe he's taking it seriously. Certainly, I think if you're ever going to take guys seriously, it's Chandler. But one thing that I think has been a criticism of Pimblett is keeping his hands down, right? So if that's the biggest problem with the dude that I've seen is his hands down, I think he could be in real trouble. But fascinating as a pick 'em fight.
Yeah, I believe in Paddy. We'll see, but I believe in him. I think he is an explosive athlete, and I like guys who have submissions in their arsenal, which he certainly has. He's got power, can flow. I mean, he can fight. I mean,
Dude, well, I tell you what, he could submit Chandler. There's no question about it. I could see Chandler either gassing out or making some mistake, and Paddy just jumping on something,
And I want to say,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I remember you say I was on the Ian Machado Gary hype train, but Belal, I remember a while ago hyping up Gabriel Bonfim and Ian Machado Gary. Like a lot of the guys that you were asked about in Abu Dhabi in 2022, I think, have really gone on to do really good things. So I know you think those guys are good. So if Dricus du Plessis sucks, Belal, so let me ask you this. Caio Borralho. What do we think of Caio Borralho as a middleweight? Does he suck or is he good?
No, he's a dog. He's good.
All right. What about Khamzat Chimaev?
Oh, he's a dog. And like what people were saying when I was saying that middleweight sucks, I didn't mean the whole middleweight division. Like
that's why I'm giving you a chance right now.
Dricus both suck.
Right. What about Nassourdini Mavov?
He's good. He has holes for sure, but he's definitely a dog. Yeah.
All right. So part of the reason I asked you about the 85ers is because I'm not going to let you get out of here, and I know it's not my show, without at least talking about Islam Makhachev and how he factors into all of this, right? Because as you know, as a champion who is willing to literally fight anybody across probably 3 divisions, they're trying to do championship double headers. So I would imagine the only reason why an Islam Makhachev Balal Muhammad fight was even considered promotionally right now is because they need championship fights. Would you agree with that sentiment, that the UFC understands there's a relationship there and maybe this wouldn't be the ideal time for Islam to move up, but that they're a promoter that needs 2 title fights on every pay-per-view and they have, masters to serve?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I know that they need title fights, right? But like I said, I think there's still fights for both of us in our divisions. And I think that there's still names that he hasn't fought yet. And there's definitely names that I haven't fought yet. And I think that at the end of the day, for me, I want to leave a legacy at 170 of beating all these guys that were in the top 5 and emptying out my division before I could start looking up at 185 or thinking about 185. I think within 2 fights, I could look at 185 and I could start talking about it and believing in it. But I got to go out there and I got to dominate Jack Della. I got to go out there and I got to dominate whoever's after that. To show it. And I've been dominating these guys, right? People will say whatever they want, but none of them have been a close fight. Everything I've done has been domination. So I just got to continue to do that.
Have you been to Montreal?
I've been to Montreal. I actually trained at TriStar for like a week. Before I was in the UFC, I went out there. Frost Hobby's obviously one of the best coaches in the world. And I was like, oh, let me go try to train with them guys. And it was cool. It was a good experience.
Flo, Faraz has captured all those Boston guys, huh?
He has. It's not too bad of a drive. That was the drive I used to make. You go through upstate New York, Vermont, that whole thing, and it's not too bad, man. You get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, we drove like 19 hours to get there from Chicago. It was,
wow, damn. Yeah, that's a drive.
Yeah, it was a drive.
That's cool. A drive. That's a big boy.
So, Bully, before we get out of here, in terms of your health right now and where you're at in terms of your training, I know Ramadan will come and go. You've been someone who's always wanted to fight so often. So even though I'm getting all excited, the timetable, we still got a little time here. So where are you at health-wise relative to where I guess you normally would be because you were injured?
I'm good. I'm back in the gym. I've been like this whole camp for Nacho, who's fighting March 8th. I've been Jalen Turner. So I had to get in shape for him, and I've been freaking catching kicks to the freaking head, body. It's a hard one, right? Because Jalen Turner's a dog, and I think that's going to be a crazy fight. And now we got Gerald Mearshart back in the gym with us. Speaking of submissions, I'm adding stuff to my arsenal, John. We got it. It's coming, bro.
Dude, how about that body, though? How about GM3? He was down here in South Florida, but a lot of people down here in South Florida don't always get the attention down here, right? Get back up to that small, tight-knit community, right?
Yeah, he's one of the best minds in the sport. Like, he's so smart everywhere. He's so technical, and he breaks down stuff on the ground and makes it so easily. And I think that's one of the pieces that I've been missing the last couple of years, is having like a good jiu-jitsu coach that, like, with a mind for MMA, right? There's jiu-jitsu coaches that are all about jiu-jitsu, and then there's MMA jiu-jitsu. And I think Gerald, who has the most submissions in middleweight history, he's adding so much to my game, so much to my team already.
I love it.
Awesome.
Well, the last thing I'll say, just sort of a parting word for the undisputed welterweight champion as he begins sort of the next 10 weeks. You know, this is what makes the UFC great, right? And I have heard Shavkat Rakhmonov, Jack Della Maddalena, Ian Machado Gary all put you over on a microphone before they were maybe on the cusp of the world title, right? For whatever reason. And now that you're the champion, they all know as top contenders, right? Even if they're young, as long as they're on a winning streak, there's a champion at the top of the division who's willing to fight them all. And I give you a lot of credit for that, because you easily could have been like, give me Usman, man. Give me the fucking legacy fight. I don't care that he's lost 3 in a row. So good on you. Health is wealth. I hope the next 10 weeks go well. And we appreciate you carving out a few minutes at, 9 p.m.
Don't
Central
kick
for
him
us.
out of here, though, with this
Well,
little
no,
exit. I'm going to rip on him in the post show, and I'm going to rip on both of you. So we're all getting out of here together. Don't be doing none of that. He ain't no guest up in this. You got anything else? Happy Dad? For Kenny Florian and the welterweight champion of the world, Balal Muhammad, my name is Jason Anik, and for Jon Anik, too. Appreciate y'all being with us live tonight. Later.